One of the most common questions we get from authors at Textbroker is, I'm a 3-star author. How can I reach 4 stars? Well, your style and the structure of your sentences contribute to a 4-star rating, but the biggest difference between 3 and 4 stars is the proper use of commas. So, what are commas used for? Commas can be used to separate items in a list, to introduce a sentence, to set off non-essential information, and occasionally to avoid ambiguity. That feedback we leave sure can be tedious, hey? Let's go through some of the common errors that we see so you can better understand what we mean. What is a compound predicate? Let's help this author figure out a sentence with a compound predicate.
She was confused and wanted to know more. Is this comma correct?
Well, break down the sentence. What is the subject?
She
What verbs describe the subject she?
was and wanted
How many times is the subject used?
once.
Then don't use a comma since it's incorrect to split a compound predicate.
Oh, okay. So, what do you mean by an independent clause?
An independent clause is pretty straightforward. If a clause can stand alone as a sentence, it is independent. If it does not, it is dependent. We'll see more examples of dependent clauses in a few minutes, but for now, let's take another look at our example sentence. She was confused and wanted to know more. Now, let's add a second subject, she. When we do this, both sides are independent, and when there are two independent clauses in a sentence separated by a coordinating conjunction, a comma goes before the conjunction. She was confused and she wanted to know more. Do you know what the 7 coordinating conjunctions are?
I think so. For, and, nor, but, or, yet, and so. I remember them with the acronym FANBOYS.
Good idea.
How do I decide if something is an introductory clause?
Well, it introduces a sentence, of course, but there are certain words that indicate an introductory clause, and by recognizing these words, you will be able to recognize many types of introductory clauses. Because, while, since, when, during, and in are some of these words. The best indication of an introductory clause, however, is to remember that an introductory clause introduces an independent clause, and if you remove it, the sentence will still make sense. Let's look at a few examples. Because she was confused, she wanted to know more. While she understood grammar basics, commas confused her. Since she was curious, she studied up on comma use. When she was done studying, she understood a lot more. Now you try. Can you come up with a sentence using in and during to begin an introductory clause?
How about, in 1997, I graduated from high school.
Fantastic.
During college, I studied English and worked in a bookstore.
You got it. How about this sentence? Is this an example of a comma after an introductory clause?
No, because it's incorrect to separate a subject and a verb with a comma, and the subject is one way to figure out the correct use of commas.
Absolutely. If you look again at the example sentences, you will notice that the subject and verb are never separated by a comma. Finally, let's go over what we mean by adverbial clause and review how to properly separate a list with commas.
Yeah, I am a little confused about adverbial clauses.
No problem. Basically, an adverbial clause is another form of dependent clause. An adverbial clause will 1. Contain a subject and a verb, 2. Use a subordinating conjunction, and 3. Answer the question of how, when, why, where, or to what extent something took place.
Okay, great. Are there any words that indicate an adverbial clause?
There are indeed. They are called subordinating conjunctions, and knowing these conjunctions is the best way to identify an adverbial clause. They include as, since, when, because, if, where, while, though, and whether. Note that the list of subordinating conjunctions is larger, but these are the most common.
So, what are the rules regarding adverbial clauses and commas?
It's pretty straightforward. If the adverbial clause is at the beginning of the sentence, you need a comma between the dependent and independent clause. However, if the adverbial clause is at the end of the sentence, you should not use a comma. Also, if the clause is placed within the sentence as a non-essential, non-restrictive clause, it is surrounded by commas on both sides. When she was done studying, she understood a lot more. She understood a lot more when she was done studying. She realized that when she was done studying, she knew a lot more.
Yeah, I see. Thanks. Now, are you going to tell me how to properly separate a list with commas?
Yep, let's go back to our list of subordinating conjunctions. A comma comes after each list item, but not before the coordinating conjunction. They include as, since, when, because, if, where, while, though, and whether.
Yay, we're all done.
Not quite. If a serial list is more complex, such as the following, use a comma before the conjunction to avoid ambiguity. I had orange juice, toast, and ham and eggs for breakfast. Thank you for taking the time to watch our comma video. This video was designed to use the same terminology that we use in our ratings at Textbroker, so feel free to cross-reference. If you have any questions about this video or your orders, or just need a general grammar tip, please don't hesitate to contact us at Author Services. Thank you again, and have a wonderful day.